Hi, welcome to the zoo, and we're your hosts, Caitlin.
And Josh Zaniga.
Okay, so we decided to do a part 2 for the mission episode. There were just still a lot more thoughts I think that we both had that we wanted to talk about, and still a lot of submissions that I wanted to read and kind of banter back and forth about. So
We had a lot of submissions, and some of the stories are hilarious. I just feel like you could talk about a mission like forever, like all the ups and the downs. And it really is one of those things where there's so many layers to it
yeah,
that I don't know. It's just like, it's one of those things where if you've experienced it, you know exactly what we're talking about. As the kids would say now, lore, there's a lot of lore that's developed, like legends, like stories that are developed on your mission.
yeah, there's, like you said, so many layers, like not only of just going on a mission, but depending on where you go, what kind of mission president you have, what year you went now, because I see TikToks nowadays of missionaries doing like at home dances still. I'm like,
Yeah.
and I think it was a girl who was on her boyfriend's page, but she was wearing her name tag doing the TikTok dances. And it's just kind of weird,
interesting.
And then we went to a wedding the other day, and there was a missionary there. And I think he was doing at home MTC, I'm guessing, because he didn't have a companion. Like he was
Yeah.
just dancing.
Yeah, I was confused by it. I didn't realize that that's what was happening.
Yeah. But we were both talking about how on both of our missions, we weren't allowed to dance. Like it was against the rules, right? For you and for my mission.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think what's interesting is that with this, like there's layers to church culture and church policy. Like there's things that change within the church, and some things I'm okay with, and there's other things that really bother me. I'm sure that the changes that happened in the mission field were inspired, like because I trust the leadership of the church.
Yeah.
But I know for me, I personally would not have been able to have the amount of self growth if I was able to FaceTime home every week.
See, but it almost makes it feel like it was just meant to be the exact year that you went on your mission, Because I think it was the last 6 months of my mission, we got smartphones, or it was either 3 to 6 months of the last of my mission. And it was really weird to actually get a smartphone, because before I felt like, I don't know, we just didn't have one. So it's like you have no way of looking people up on Facebook or any of these things, which actually a lot of the Cambodian people do use Facebook. And so it was kind of nice that way. But I do feel like there's so many more temptations, and there were so many more issues when we got smartphones rather than when we had like the Nokia brick phones,
I would say that it could be argued that it requires more discipline to be a good missionary now than it did back then.
Yeah.
But I feel like it almost seemed like back in the day, things were a little bit more archaic or a little bit more rough around the edges. And look, I'm not saying that mine was in any way comparable to the missionaries back, like way back in the day, where, they would regularly get like threatened or martyred. Like I'm not trying to compare that and say that it's apples to apples, but
Yeah.
I'm talking like maybe the 70s up till now, just in the past, I don't know, 50, 60 years, there's been a lot of changes. A lot of it has to do with technology, but I just think it's interesting.
Yeah. And I will say, I've talked to people who felt a lot more at peace and comfortable with going on a mission because they were able to talk to their family more often. And there's like counseling services that a lot of missionaries can use.
For real?
Yeah. I mean, we know people that use that on their mission, that they had a counselor throughout their mission. I mean, I don't know if that was even an option when I went on a mission, or I didn't remember hearing about that. And so I'm saying I do think there's good in those things where it is like more comforting to go on a mission because you're not like cut off completely for 2 years. Not completely, but it almost felt like that, I'm sure, for you at times. Like,
It absolutely felt like that.
like you're just in the
whole
dark.
time. The whole time. Not just like at times. I felt cut off the whole time.
Yeah. So I see good and bad. I think it depends on people's personalities, and, I think it makes sense, like the way that the world is going, being able to find people through social media and like staying in contact through social media too is really can be important. Cause I feel like the only way that I can really talk to people in Cambodia is through Facebook. Like that's the only way. I mean, maybe there's some countries that have the app called WhatsApp, because I do talk to my sister and her family on that app, which is nice. But I feel like most people use Facebook and Facebook Messenger. So
Yeah. And you use WhatsApp because they're in Vietnam.
yeah. Yeah.
I think for me, though, one of the greatest things that happened, and it wasn't like an easy thing, the reason why I, looking back, place so much value on me being cut off is because prior to my mission, there were 100% like relationships that I had that where there was kind of like an enmeshment or like an emotional dependence. And for me, just because of my circumstances at the time, I needed that at that time. But once it was like taken away really, really suddenly, it hurt. But I can honestly say I don't feel like I've ever had like an unhealthy relationship in that way where I emotionally depend on my happiness for like through somebody else ever again. Because it forced me to find that within myself and with my relationship with God. Mm-hmm. And in a lot of ways with a lot of my companions. And so I know that you and I, for the most part, we had really good companions that we got along really well with. Yeah. There's some that, personalities, they clash. For people who haven't served missions, it's really hard to explain what that kind of, like the pressure that's put on that relationship.
Yeah.
Because you can't leave them. You can't just be like, oh, I don't like this one, want a new one. Doesn't work like that. And you have to remain within eyesight of each other. The only exception is when you're in the bathroom or showering. Like, I can't think of any other exceptions. Can you?
No, that's it. Yeah, and I remember one time on my mission, I had just gotten into the city. I really only knew where my apartment was and the church was. And I had said this in the previous episode, but it was just like very overwhelming biking in the city. And
in a place where you can't speak the language.
Yeah, like at that point, I was still pretty new. I think it was my third transfer. And so, anyway, my companion was biking super, super fast. We had gotten separated from each other. And I was freaking out. That was like the first time on my mission where you feel super weird being alone. Like, cause you're just so used to having somebody, like you said, basically at your hip at all times. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, well, I could either go to the apartment or I can go to the church. And the church was closer. So I'm like, I'm just going to go to the church. And I was crying. I think we were apart for maybe like an hour, but it felt like 24 hours. It felt like, a really long time. And I remember I asked one of the elders who was actually in my MTC group to give me a blessing, and he was super nice and comforted me that during that time. But I was so scared though. We finally like reunited and my companion found me and went to the church. But yeah, it's in place, that rule, for a reason, like you said. And yeah, it's just for safety, really, I think, and just to make sure you're on the right track. So, but actually I was going to say, we did just go to a restaurant in Orem called Milagros for the first time. And Josh had found it on Google. It was super cool because we just randomly decided to go there. And then we sit down and our waiter was an elder from my mission. Mm-hmm. And I think he was super surprised that I remembered him. Cause I think I met him once or twice on the mission. Like we didn't, serve around each other for a super long time, but it was just so fun to talk to him. And actually I forgot to tell you this because I had looked at his profile and I remembered that he had served during COVID. And so he actually had to come back from Cambodia. I don't know how long he had been out, but I think he got reassigned to Washington State.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. And so I was curious how you would feel if you had to be reassigned. I just think that for me personally, it would be so hard. You're thinking you're going to go out for 2 years to one location and then you get reassigned to a completely different mission. It would just be hard to finish.
Washington is in no way as cool as Cambodia. Like,
I mean, it's just so different. Especially if you like got a taste of that was your mission and it felt so meant to be. And then they're like, actually, you're going to this place.
I'd be super disappointed.
Yeah.
I mean, it is what it is, but I'd be disappointed.
Like, I just have to say hats off to the missionaries who served during COVID, who a lot of them, I think, even like had to come home for a time to wait to get reassigned. I mean, I think there's a part of me that just would be so hard and rough to go through that. So
my sister, Bella, she spent like the last 2 transfers in her apartment playing board games because they couldn't do anything.
Yeah. And then like, I remember talking with other missionaries who were in Asia. I think it was a missionary I knew that served in China, and I'm pretty sure he had to stay inside. It was like 6 months of his mission or
I didn't
something.
know anybody served in China. Was it like Hong Kong?
Yeah, I think it was Hong Kong. I can't remember, but I know it was like a very strict Asian country. And during that time, they weren't able to leave. And so I think they were under lockdown for like months and months on end. And it sounded like a lot of those missionaries went through like a really rough mental period. Like, who wouldn't, you know? I just
Yeah.
can't even imagine that. And you're not even doing anything really when you're just locked up inside. I mean, all of us know how weird COVID was. So
The thing that really is interesting about it is that like while you're set apart as a missionary, even if you're locked in for months, like there's no deviation from the rules. It's not like, okay, I know you guys are having a hard time, so these next 2 months
you can
you
go
guys
to a
get
movie or
you
something.
get to go to a movie.
Yeah, exactly.
Or you get to watch TV.
Yeah.
It's not like that.
There's like no way to cope really, probably, you know, it's just nuts. But I was talking to the elder for my mission, and it was so impactful because I had remembered his mom had passed away while we were out on our mission. And I remember thinking just how like almost in awe I was of him for staying out on his mission. And I had told him that my dad recently passed away, and he was just so kind about that and said he would pray for me. And he kind of just shared that he felt like rebuked a little bit on his mission. Like he had like a part of him wanted to come home. Obviously, like if you're super close, he said he was super close with his mom. And I just can't imagine going through that on the mission. Cause like you said, it's already so intense and you can't really cope and you can't see them, you know, obviously, and like really grieve, I feel like. And so anyway, he had just shared that he had a feeling that God was kind of helping him push through it, you know, and would show him, like, I guess, just how grateful he is if he kept going, you know. And he just kind of shared about family members choosing to go through the temple and lots of spiritual experiences and lots of blessings that came through that. And I don't know, it really impacted me, him sharing that, because I just feel like it's so hard to find joy, I don't know, through those really difficult times, let alone if you were set apart as a missionary and like trust in God and your path, and that he'll show you why you had to go through that and how those experiences will shape your family, maybe even, and you as well. So anyway, I felt like it was meant to be that we went to that restaurant and to see him. And it was really comforting for me too, just to talk to him about the next life, and that he really feels like our ancestors and people are busy right now doing work. And it just made me think, like, maybe if there's times where I can't feel my dad, it doesn't mean that he's not there. He could just be, you know, doing what God needs him to do.
He also said that he felt that there's times where he has felt his mom's presence.
Yeah, totally. And that's just made me think about, like, just to keep myself in a good spot to hear that, because, and really look for it, because it's really easy for, I don't know, just life to get chaotic and to really hear God. And so anyway, it was just really cool talking to him. And it just made me think of all the missionaries that had to go through COVID. And, you know, I think that those missionaries were called at that time too, to be able to handle that, you know, kind of what we were talking about earlier. So I think everything for me personally happens for a reason. But so there were a couple like submissions that were really kind of sentimental and sweet, and it just made me kind of think about some things. So this is one of my good friends, and she submitted this, and it just kind of made me think about conversations that I've had with her. But she said, "I loved my mission. Some of the best friends that I have to this day are mission buddies and or companions. One of my last exchanges was in an area that two of my best friends were serving. Although I only did an exchange with one of them, I was with both of them at night. All three of us loved to dance, and we stayed up the whole night choreographing a dance and filming it on one of our cameras. I will forever cherish those silly moments I had that reminded me that I was more than just a missionary. I was still a person with a personality, wants, and needs. I do think it is important to consecrate yourself for your mission, but also remember that you were called to serve for who you are."
That's a super important thing to remember. And it honestly, it was really hard to remember that as a missionary. And what I mean by that, I'm touching on the part of like that you were called, that God called you, and not this fictitious imaginary version of yourself. Because I don't know about you, but for me, I really struggled with comparison. Like I wanted to be more righteous, or I wish I knew the scriptures as well
Yeah.
as other elders. But God did call you, and he qualifies those who he calls. And so when I realized that my personality, and I'm sure you had that same realization, that your personality is special, that you're special, and it was you that was called, not this fictitious version of Sister Stewart, like it makes a huge difference. I feel like it makes your relationship with God more personal.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's really easy to feel a little bit robotic on the mission, because obviously there's order in place. And like you said, you're with a companion for 6 weeks, there's all these rules. Depending on the mission president, it could be different, but for the most part, it's pretty standard, And so I think it was Elder Bednar who had said this, but like he had talked about in a talk that the person that gets called, it's not really like the location, it's you, And I think it's really, I don't know that I'm probably not saying it exactly
No, you're
how
not.
he said
Or
it.
no, you
but
are. You are
yeah.
saying it right. He did
Okay.
say that.
Okay. So yeah, I just remembered that. And because I think it's really easy to get caught up in, thinking someone else's mission is cooler than mine, or I wish I was speaking a language, or is this really where I'm supposed to go, or whatever. And I don't know. I just remember getting out there on the mission, and I kind of touched on this before, but it was so hard for me with the language barrier because I really wanted people to see me, and I felt like they couldn't. And but it was interesting when I really think back on it. I felt like that pushed me to just do my best, and I really believe, like what you said with companions, that you learned so much being with that person about not only yourself, but just compromise. And like I said, who you want to marry, who you might not want to marry, like qualities that you like or you don't like. And I will take that away forever, though, from my mission, that I was able to see God's children in such a different light. And my companions were included in that, where I really, really felt like some of them, I had really great companions, but when we had moments of like weakness or times where we didn't totally get along, I had to think about, I guess, just how God sees them and what is God trying to teach me in these moments, And I always was able to find something good about every single person. And it really helped me a lot because I feel like I've been able to apply that in my own life, to be less judgmental, to like care, I don't know, just about people, and seeing past, I don't know, the bad qualities maybe, or the qualities that, and you can do that with your spouse too, like
God was
yeah.
definitely preparing you for dealing with me.
I could just tell you were going to say that. Like,
Yep.
God was preparing you, Kate, but
Preparing you to deal with my craziness.
But we all have craziness, and like my friend was saying, you have to remember who you are. And I've even thought about that with the podcast too, like I'll see people who post about like being an influencer. Like a lot of people that's just wasn't a job like 10 years ago, and how it's kind of weird in a way that people can make so much money from being an influencer or TikToker or whatever. But at the same time, it's like a lot of the time I feel like these people who are annoyed by that are just the ones that aren't going for it. And or maybe they really do think it's lame, but it's like,
I'm in that category.
Yeah, but it's like there's things maybe you think are weird about it, maybe the dancing or whatever, or like putting your kids out online, which I can totally see. And I'm not even trying to go down that road right now. I'm just saying, like, you could say, I'm not going to go for podcasting. I'm not going to go for TikTok or whatever just because it's too saturated or whatever. And I'm just saying you could think of that as a missionary too. Like, I'm not going to go on a mission because what could I really do? Or how can I really make a difference, right? And so I just think you always have to remember that throughout life, that if you don't go for things that you're passionate about, how will you ever know? And how will you know, like, if there's people out there that actually could benefit and learn from you, I don't know if I'm making sense. I'm like trying to connect the two.
It totally makes sense.
Okay, yeah. I just know that God needs all of us, is what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
And don't forget that. If you haven't gone on a mission yet, and it's easier said than done, but it's really easy to like get hung up on being the perfect missionary and like what was that talk that we both talked about when we got home? Like, it was like different tiers of being a consecrated missionary almost.
Oh, I remember that talk.
Like the 4 types of a missionary or something like that. Do you remember?
I don't remember the details, but I remember I read it multiple times.
Okay. So I'm just saying, I remember hearing these talks or whatever, and I would read them. And I feel like I already lean more towards being a perfectionist in general and just really hard on myself at times. And I think, I don't know if you agree with this, but I feel like when you have the badge on and you're representing Jesus Christ, it's a lot of pressure. And you want to be your best, do your best, which is a good thing, you know? But at the same time, I think you can put so much pressure on yourself that it like hinders you in a way too, you know?
You can move past the mark.
Yeah.
You can overshoot it. And I definitely feel like there were times where I did.
I will say I've talked with my friend before about this who submitted this, and she has said like there were times on her mission where she did feel stifled by companions where like they didn't like something that she did. Like she likes to sing. And so sometimes she'd be singing like on her bike or whatever.
That happened to me on my mission.
Oh, what did?
I used to sing significantly more, as lame as it might sound. I lettered in choir. I did 3 choirs, 2 to 3 choirs every single year in high school.
That's not lame.
And sang a solo at football games like that I was playing in. I sang it and then went out onto the field. And then I sang a solo at my graduation. So I wasn't like amazing like you. I think that you're better than I ever was just naturally. But when I worked at it, I was pretty good. And
no, you definitely have a good voice. And it seems like you enjoyed it too.
I did enjoy it. I kind of carried that over into my mission because the time between my mission and high school and when I was doing all that wasn't that long. But I had one companion who really annoyed the crap out of me. And so we had a companionship inventory, and he agreed to change certain things if I stopped singing. So I stopped singing.
Yeah. See, but that's what's so interesting about companionships, where it's like something could bother someone so bad that they're willing to like say it and kind of hurt your feelings. And you almost feel like you have to compromise and almost like not be yourself in a way just to keep them happy. But so I don't know. I
only felt like that with companions that kind of sucked, to be honest. And I think that comes from them having a lack of self-awareness, because for me, when I had companions that were really kind of like that I absolutely felt stifled by, I don't know, it was just like a problem. They were kind of a problem. And maybe they realized it, just didn't care, or they didn't realize it.
Well, and I just remember my friend saying that was at the beginning of her mission. And so it was kind of hard for her to kind of find her footing in a way, because she was like, well, what kind of missionary am I going to be? Like, if I can't sing, if I can't do these things that I love, I'm sure felt a little bit robotic, like I said, but I just remember her saying she was just like, who am I? What am I doing? And if they don't like this, where am I going? Where am I headed? And it really got her down on herself, a little bit. And so I think there's things that can bother you and you can, I guess, voice that. But a lot of the time, like you said, it's probably just like better left unsaid. And maybe it's better for you to just push through it. I don't know. Just thinking back on some things, I'm like, I just think everybody should just be themselves. I don't know.
I think that personally, when I struggled with it the most is when I put my own feelings and my own like wants and desires above the goal or above like the mission. And the mission, I mean like what it was that we were trying to accomplish, which was representing Christ and spreading his gospel. Like when I would get too hung up on being annoyed with somebody, which sometimes they made it pretty easy to be annoyed at them. I'm sure I don't feel like I was an annoying missionary. I'm sure there's things that I did that maybe I just didn't realize. But in all honesty, I tried really hard to be a good companion. Not every missionary does try to be a good companion.
Because it can be lopsided too, like you just said, like focusing too much on the work that you don't feel unified at all with your companionship.
Yeah, there was times of that too.
Yeah.
Like 100%. When you're companions with somebody that's disobedient, oftentimes you have to find compromise that is uncomfortable. But as long as you can keep the peace and work towards a mission, or work towards the goal, and you're saying that you're doing your best with that, like I don't know, that's how I had to do it sometimes. Like I never compromised on waking up early or on time or like specific rules. Like I did not compromise a lot on the letter of the law, but as long as it hit the spirit of the law, I was okay with some things.
Did you ever have like power struggles between like the senior companion and like you being the senior companion or you're not the senior companion?
Yes.
Yeah.
I did. Mm-hmm. So The majority of my mission, I was the senior companion, and it was kind of weird. Like I don't want to like take up too much time talking about it, but when I was in my area, my first area for 9 months, my first 2 companions, I was the junior companion, and then from
Which
that
just means
point
you haven't
forward,
been out as long, right?
yeah, it just means that you haven't been out as long. But then the third companion, I was a senior companion, and that guy had been out significantly longer than me, and there was reasons for it. And that was when I got pushed into being a district leader, which I'm not one of those guys who feels like, oh, I'm better because, or I'm cooler because I had a leadership position. I don't feel that way at all. I feel like one of the jokes in Utah is guys that like gloat that they were an AP. Really doesn't matter. Just so like you're kind of aware, I was like a district leader and I had a difficult companion, and it made things weird. Like it was hard to find that balance. And because that was the first companion I ever had that was like that was pretty outright disobedient in a lot of ways.
And what were the ways? It was like getting up on time?
He had a bad attitude the whole time. He would flirt with girls, which I did not flirt for 2 years. And
You actually did lock your heart?
yeah, I did. Like 1000%. I wasn't interested. I wasn't interested at all.
Yeah.
Like I would notice cute girls, but I wouldn't engage with them.
You wouldn't even go there? You're like,
No,
yeah.
I wouldn't go there.
Yeah.
But this guy was a flirt. I wouldn't say it was to the point where he made things awkward, but you knew what it was that he was doing. Like, I don't know. I just felt pressed up against the wall. Like I felt like there was resistance in the sense that if I didn't hold a line, who knows where the line will end?
Yeah. See,
Or who knows where it'll stop?
and that's what I was going to say though. Like, cause in the beginning, I was the junior companion for a lot of transfers. And then I remember becoming the senior companion and kind of like the threshold or whatever changes and it shifts.
Yeah.
And you're like, if the other companion isn't disciplined, I feel like you have to kind of put it on yourself to, just depending on who you're with, to hold the line, just depending, you know? And if you don't, then it can be a really weird dynamic. And then you can kind of go down together depending on where you're both at. And so
I don't feel like I don't know if I really answered your question though. That was the first instance where something like that happened. The second time that it happened was actually with somebody that I'm really friendly with and I really like a lot. For the majority of my mission, I felt like there were portions of my mission where I could tell that I was needed in that area or there was like something to fix because I like solving problems. Like there were things that I could directly look at and say, okay, this is what I need to work on while I'm here. And not talking internally, I'm talking like the ward, or there hasn't been a baptism in like 3 years, or the district.
So you set goals and made plans?
Kind of, yeah. I mean, you know how I am mentally. Like I work things out in my mind and I think super deeply about them. But when I got to this place, it was called Lake Reams. It's the one that was the Disney World ward. It was the first time I got put into a tri-panionship, and we were all zone leaders. It was my first time becoming a zone leader. It was like 6 months before I went home from my mission. I spent the majority of my mission as a district leader. I really felt unneeded. Like I really struggled with finding purpose because I kind of identified myself as a problem solver, but the ward that we moved into was like everything was running perfectly. It was like it's like a Disney World ward. Like it's like that's how good it was. It was like a Disney ward.
It was the happiest place on earth.
Yeah, it was like the happiest place on earth. And I'm like, where's the problems? What do we got to fix?
Yeah.
You know, and then I spent the majority of that first transfer when we were still a tripanionship because one of them was getting ready to go home. I tried to go out with every companionship in our zone because I was really good at going on exchanges and like getting a feel for I was really good at doing that. But I liked being in our area. I didn't like that I was the one that was kind of booted out to do that. That's how it felt at the time. At the time, like when I look back now, it's not what it was like. But and that was also the first time I can honestly say that I had somebody who, like as a companion that, and I don't say this at all to disparage any previous companion I have at all, but I really leaned into it. I know others people did too, but it was like the first time where if I wasn't there, things still would have happened. Does what I'm saying making sense? Like that, like it was the first time in those wards I had ever experienced not being the more liked missionary in that ward.
Yeah.
For me, it felt really weird.
It almost felt like you were not needed, right?
Yeah, I felt like I wasn't needed.
I think that's easy for it to happen in a trio too.
Another way to say it is like it was the first time that I was a companion. I was companions with people that were more charismatic than I was.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. Yeah. And I think that can be hard too, though. I remember getting to certain areas and, sometimes members in that ward or branch, in my case, it was just branches really, they would like one of the companions, like either you or the other person you're with a little bit more, or they would want to talk to that companion more, or this member, thought a certain thing about this person. And it was easy to compare, it's always easy to compare on the mission. And also I was going to say too, I remember a lot of the sisters from my MTC group trained really early. They trained, I think, in their fourth transfer. And I will say, like, getting the language down took so long. I felt like I wasn't doing super well with it. Maybe like 6 months in, I felt
Did
a
you
little bit
train?
more. Yeah, so that's what I was going to say. So 6 months in, that's when I felt like I was doing pretty well with the language. But like fourth transfer, a lot of my friends got the call that they were training, I felt like I was way behind. Like I was just like, my language isn't as good, probably. God doesn't trust me to train. But then at the same time, I was like, I don't even want to train right now. I don't even know how they're going to do that, And I remember my friends were scared and it was really hard for them too. But I didn't think I was going to train my entire mission. And then my very last 2 transfers, I trained. I don't know, at that point, I was not super excited to train even then, just because I was about to go home. And so when people say like the word trunky or whatever, like I was kind of in that spot where and I ended up serving 19 months, which most sisters serve 18, but the way that it worked out, it was longer. And so I really was like done at that point. Like I was just like, I don't know how I'm going to keep going. I got put with a companion who was Cambodian, and every single Cambodian sister that I had could speak English, which was kind of crazy, because most of the time when people get put with natives, they're usually not English speaking at all. So yeah, like it was a super great companionship, but I felt like super inadequate at that time because I was tired and I was kind of ready to go home. But I think that's the reason why
They gave you a trainee.
yeah. But God also wanted me to like buckle down and keep pushing, but I'm just saying, looking back, it doesn't, like you said, if you're a district leader, you have leadership positions, you don't train, you do train, it doesn't really matter. Like you think it's such a big deal when it really isn't,
Well, I think what it is that you think it's a measurement of like what God thinks about you or what others think about you. And the truth is, it's really not.
Yeah. And I remember, I don't know if you did this at the end of your mission, but I was like praying so hard that like God would accept like my service that I rendered, I guess. And I was just so scared that I didn't do enough and that I didn't give enough, which I feel like a lot of people probably felt that because it goes by fast, even though in the moment, sometimes it's slow. But once it's almost over, you're like, oh my gosh, like, did I do everything I should have, And I felt so happy when I really felt like I got an answer in my heart that I did everything that I could and that he was proud of me, So yeah, I think, yeah, the mission's it's a lot of pressure, but it's also good pressure. Like you said, in the past, that sometimes it's good to have pressure. This is another submission that we got that's a little bit more sentimental. So it says, my parents divorced on my mission and it was tough as an only child, not having siblings to talk about it with. It was tough being gone and going through this, but Heavenly Father answered my prayers and I knew he was aware of me. I grew up in Elder Christofferson's ward, and when he heard about my parents' divorce, he happened to be going to the mission south of mine in Canada on a visit, and then he made a special trip to my mission to interview me and make sure I was doing okay. Apostles minister to the one, and I was lucky enough to be the recipient of such kindness. I have a testimony of their divine calling. I felt Heavenly Father's love for me through this tender mercy.
That's really special.
Yeah, I just thought that was sweet. I don't know. I can't imagine how that must have felt, just like he said, being an only child and going through something like that with your parents and knowing that you have to keep going. Like I said, even with the elder that we talked to and him losing his mom, he kind of just had to push through, and I think Elder Bednar came out to your mission, right? And mine. And just that feeling that you get when you're around them and the power that they bring. And I just remember feeling like I was doing the right thing and that Elder Bednar was proud of us. And it's just so cool that my friend who submitted this, like he was able to meet with an apostle and he really felt like God was aware of him in that moment, and took the time to reach out and minister to the one, and it made me think about how you just never know like the seeds you plant throughout your life, not only on a mission. I just know to this day, like so many of my companions changed me for the better, you know? They helped me and I felt like I was the one, you know, that was like looked after at times. And I just remember one of my companions had said this to me when we got home and or sorry, it was a little bit after we had gotten home and I'd completely forgot about some of the things that she had said, but she was like, I just remember you would cook me, you know, breakfast and lunch like every single day. And I know she just said it meant so much to her that I would cook a lot and that she didn't have to worry about it. And I would always like plan the P days and like make sure we had a fun time and we would actually go out and do things. And I don't know, I'm just saying like, I just was kind of taken aback by that. And I was like, oh my gosh, I don't even remember cooking for you, you know? And then that same companion had, in the middle of the night on my birthday, she said that she was sick. And I heard her in the bathroom, you know, she kept getting up. And I was just like, are you okay? You know, and she's like, yeah, I'm just feeling really sick. I'm like throwing up. And she just kept going in and out of the bedroom, you know, but it was like my birthday the next day and I didn't put it together at all. But I woke up and all around our apartment, she had gotten pictures from family members and friends and like little quotes from them and put them all over our apartment and just like little like things that my parents and my family and my friends like loved about me, you know? And she literally got up at like 2 a.m. to post all of that around the apartment, you know? And it's just like little things like that on the mission. It just meant so much because you're like, not only your sleep means a lot on the mission, but like the fact that she would even think to do that, you know? And I've realized that as I've gotten home from the mission, like when you have a prompting to do something, you never know who could really like benefit from that prompting and that they might feel like they're the one person, like maybe they feel forgotten, I guess. And that just that tiny little gesture that you made such a difference. And it just made me think of that too, that like I always want to try to just think of other people because I think that's why we were all so happy on the mission, you know, like we're constantly thinking about who can we teach, who can we talk to, who can we find, but also like just serving your companion too. And I don't know. I think that's why it was so impactful in a lot of ways because you're always serving, you know?
Agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah. Is there any, I don't know, I guess like thoughts that you came up maybe for you, like any companions that might have done something for you that impacted you or?
I did have one companion. He cooked for me and it was super nice because he was really passionate about cooking. He wanted to be a chef. He would like make homemade hot chocolate for us too. And it was pretty cool, especially because we celebrated Christmas together. And so he really tried to like bring the Christmas spirit.
That's sweet.
Yeah. It was really, really nice. I just felt like Christmases were always special on the mission.
I remember like pretty close to Christmas, my sister who still lives in Vietnam, her and her family came to Cambodia just for vacation. And I got permission to see them. And we went to lunch with them at like a American pizza restaurant. And then afterwards they bought us groceries. And it was like one of the best days of my mission. Because I remember my sister bought us like this massive tub of Nutella. And she just let me pick out like all of these things that I could never afford on the mission. And most of it was like American products because they're a lot more, you know, in Asia. And so I just remember like we felt like we were kings and queens, you know, like hitting the jackpot, like eating all of our treats and stuff. And it made me think of Christmas when you said that, just because you're so far away, you're not with your family, and you really have to like rely on other people to like make your holiday special. And music actually was a huge part of my mission too, where I found a lot of joy in singing. And in the MTC, me and my best friends, Raven and Jess, we tried out to sing, and it was really, really cool actually. And Elder Shirts was a really, really incredible piano player. And so he played the piano for us, and we sang that like Come Thou Fount Haida Kolob mashup. If you've heard, I showed it to you. Yeah. So anyway, that was super memorable when we sang that. And then later on in the mission, I like tried out for some things that I was able to sing at, and I did a solo at one of the Christmas programs, and it's really cool. I don't know, just like you had said earlier, music can bring just like a lot of peace and can bring the spirit. So I really was so grateful that I had those moments in my mission because it made me really happy.
I have a juicy story to share.
Okay.
This is one that I feel like I just recently told you about it. So when I was in my very first area, I randomly, at like, I can't remember what month it was. I randomly got a letter from some girl that I did not know. And she wrote me a letter talking about how she's from Florida and how she thinks it's cool that I'm a missionary. I had no idea who she was. She just sent me a letter. And I think that what ended up happening is my parents, like, they posted something on social media in like a missionary group thing where you post where your missionary's at.
Oh yeah, that makes sense.
Not
Like
with the
send my
intent.
son a uplifting message or something, right?
I have no idea.
Yeah.
I don't know. But I would assume that that's where it happened from. Like there was like a very small tinge of flirtiness in it. And so I remember getting teased a lot by like all the like the guys I lived with, because I lived with the zone leaders at the time and I was a district leader. It was like 4 of us. So I went over to visit the Coffees because she put her name on it.
I met them, right?
Yeah, you met them. They're super cool. And I was like, you guys got to look this girl up on Facebook. Like, who is this chick? And so we looked her up. She was pretty. I wouldn't say she was like a 10 out of 10. But it was interesting, you know, whatever. I wrote her back, just said, hey, what's up? It's cool.
Pen pals?
Yeah, pen pals. But she was going to BYU Hawaii. So anyways, fast forward like 4 months later, she told me that she was in Daytona Beach. Like that's where she's from. I end up getting called to her ward when she's home for summer break and she goes to the family ward.
And you kept writing?
Yeah, we did write up until it was like maybe 2 letters.
Okay.
It wasn't like an every week type of thing.
Okay.
I wasn't that interested in like talking to somebody
Having
like
a lot
that.
of correspondence.
Yeah, it was whatever. But it was interesting. Like it was like a weird dynamic because she was like, I could tell that she was interested in me. And so it like, and honestly, as a missionary, you kind of get mission goggles, you know, because you're like so devoid of attention from like girls or from guys that
you're like, oh, someone likes me.
Yeah. It's like, oh, somebody likes me. But I was friendly, but professional. Like we didn't really interact a ton. But I'd have to imagine that she was kind of embarrassed because she probably didn't expect that to happen.
Yeah. The fact that you actually moved to her ward and everything, that's kind of crazy.
Just kind of weird.
Yeah.
But
did you talk in person?
Yeah, we did. Like a couple of times.
Okay.
Like she came to a couple of the baptisms that we had. And like when we were in Sunday school, she would like sit in the same classroom as us, you know, like it wasn't like we were trying to avoid each other, but we weren't going out of our way to talk to each other.
Yeah.
My mission, like the 4 people in the apartment, or the 3 other than me, they all knew that she had been writing me letters and they thought it was hilarious. And so I would get teased all the time about it.
Yeah.
But anyways, after the mission, she and I actually did go on a couple of dates, but nothing ended up happening.
Okay. Interesting.
Random.
That's cool that you had
story.
a little pen pal, and you know, I'm sure it was exciting and thrilling at the time. So
Kept things a little bit more interesting.
kept it a little spicy. Yeah, I am so grateful that I didn't have anyone to worry about back at home. Like I just felt so happy that I could focus on my mission. And it was just a lot easier for me because I was so much older than all the elders that I feel like I wasn't really, you know, interested. And I feel like none of them were in me, just like thinking of me as like the older sister, I guess, maybe vibes. But
Dude, I did have this one chick when I was in Melbourne. We taught her, me and Elder Spry taught her. She was this Asian lady and she was super nice. But we met with her and like had meetings with her. She just wouldn't pull the trigger on getting baptized. But she like would not stop writing me letters after I left the area. I don't think that she was like attracted to me romantically, but I think that she was like devoid of a lot of like really close relationships because she'd moved here from China.
yeah.
And it made me uncomfortable. Like it made me...
How old is she?
I don't know, like maybe in her 30s.
But she was kind of flirty towards you?
Like, I don't know.
But she
I
was
just felt
she
uncomfortable.
an investigator or a member?
An investigator.
Okay.
And she like she would send me packages of things in the mission. And one time she sent me, like I had to tell the mission office just to not let things come to me. Like I don't want it.
Oh, really? Because it was just a little bit weird.
Don't tell her where I'm at.
Oh.
You know, but she sent these cherries in the mail, and by the time they got to me, I don't know why the heck she thought to send me cherries, but they had exploded in the bag.
And they were probably really bad at that point.
Yeah, they were rotten.
That's so gross.
And it stank really bad.
Stanky cherries. That's crazy.
Yep, that's why I don't really eat cherries.
Really?
That's why I'm weird about cherries. I don't really like them.
Because of that smell? Like it reminds you of that? Or
Yeah,
what?
just a weird instance. Yeah.
What the heck? That's hilarious. I was going to say, I feel like your mission wasn't the same really, but so many elders, especially for my mission, married Cambodian sisters and just Cambodian members. And like still to this day, I feel like do. And then there were a lot of missionaries who ended up getting married that just met on the mission too. And
There was some of that in my mission.
yeah. But I would say like ours was definitely like a love mission. Like it was just crazy how many people ended up together. So this is TMI, but we're gonna send this one anyways. So this story gets me laughing every time. So she's talking about me in this story. So she said, so you and I were on an exchange together in your area. You lived in an apartment with 2 bathrooms for 6 sisters to share. Reminder, missionaries are on the same schedule, meaning those 6 girls were expected to get ready every morning at the same exact time with just 2 bathrooms. The sisters had been asking for an extra apartment for months due to overcrowding, but the request fell on deaf ears until our exchange. We both woke up to start our day by doing our morning prayers, but you finished first and went to the restroom before me. I definitely had to pee, but I thought I could hold it. I asked another sister in the house if there was another bathroom because I started to realize I really had to go. She looked at me apologetically and said her companion was using the other bathroom and took super long showers. I went back to our room and started panicking. Before I knew it, I lost control of my bladder and grabbed the first thing in my duffel, a grama, which is a traditional Khmer Cambodian scarf, and she peed into it. I was so embarrassed and mortified that I quickly threw it in a zipped pocket of my duffel bag and prayed you didn't notice something off. We finished our exchange and I went back to my area. I told myself I wouldn't tell a soul what happened and I thought it was all over, but it wasn't over. The following week, one of the sisters I lived with went on an exchange with you. When she returned, she said to me, Sister Stewart told me the funniest story that happened on your exchange together. It's crazy. I froze. My heart stopped. Crazy. Peeing in a scarf is crazy. Oh no. Sister Stewart knows. How did she know? She then proceeded to tell me the story you told her, and it was not at all what I expected. Apparently within the hour of when I secretly peed into the grama, I suddenly had the morning poops. Or sorry, you suddenly had the morning poops. But I was in the bathroom this time around, and because the other bathroom was still occupied, you had to poop in a trash can. I was shook. I figured, hey, if Sister Stewart is telling people she pooped in a trash can, I guess I can tell people I peed in a scarf. I immediately revealed my side of the story, and we were laughing so hard. We couldn't believe that you and I were harboring nearly identical secrets from each other for the remainder of our exchange. A few weeks later, I was staying at your apartment again for transfers and we bonded over it, LOL. You read your journal entry of what happened to all the sisters sleeping over and we were all dying laughing. Later, in an effort to solve the overcrowding issue of that apartment, my companion told the mission president's wife that you pooped in a trash can and I peed in a scarf all in the same morning. She was mortified, to say the least. So mortified that the sisters finally got what they had been requesting for months, an extra apartment. And they got it immediately.
Nice.
So that story was so funny. I was so shook that we did basically the same thing, but
It was a moment of desperation.
yeah, it was a moment of desperation, didn't know what to do. And
Dude, it was coming and there was no stopping
I
it.
had to do my business in a trash can, but people that know me probably don't think that that's too shocking.
No, there's plenty of other stories from our marriage that we could share.
There's more stories from where that came from. Okay, here's another one. I have always been a germ freak, grossed out by bugs, despised mold, disliked being in unclean places. Well, I arrived at my first area and it was dark, so I couldn't really see what the town looked like. It was quiet and there were scary, skinny, disease-looking dogs walking the streets. We had to take my rolling suitcases on the uneven, bumpy dirt road. No sidewalks, no cars, only bicycles, mopeds, and an occasional motorcycle. I walked into my first apartment and my companion said, don't put anything on that couch. The last companionship said there were fleas. The apartment was a long, skinny rectangle. It was dark like a bowling alley when they have the lights turned down. It smelled like mildew. I counted 7 different shades of mold. When we turned on the lights in the room, cockroaches ran all over the place.
Jeez.
No washer, no dryer, no dishwasher, no microwave, no carpet, no drinking from the faucet. At that time, we could only call home twice a year. I think I had culture shock, anxiety, and homesickness pretty bad the first 3 months of my mission. I lost so much hair, you could see my scalp in the pictures I took. It really made me turn to God and rely on the Savior at this time. I feel like I really developed a relationship with him because I felt so alone, scared, and anxious. A few months passed. I felt much happier. I was in a cleaner apartment, no mold, and only a few cockroaches. I had an awesome companion, and 2 weeks in, our mission president said we were getting into a trio. She was a sweet sister from a small, poor town in Uruguay. I don't think she had been out much at all or knew basic hygiene. She was given some deodorant in the mission home, and I noticed her putting it on the outside of her shirt instead of on her armpit. She also put an egg with its shell on it in the microwave for 2 minutes. We heard a huge explosion in the kitchen and the microwave blew open and the egg went everywhere. She also ate raw red meat when I was making lunch. I told her you need to wait until it's cooked. Well, I noticed she didn't really wash her hair. She had this thick matted hair and always kept it in a braid. I also noticed she itched her head a lot. I immediately started hyper focusing on her hair because that's what my brain does. Every time she would itch, I would look. We were sitting at a mission conference and I saw her itch, and then all of a sudden I saw a huge bug come out of her hair and then back in. My stomach sank. I immediately texted my mission president's wife and said, I think my companion has lice. She said, well, you shouldn't be able to see lice. Well, sure enough, that big bug was like the mother of all the lice in her hair. She had so much living in there, it makes me want to cry. Anyways, the nurse said, you guys need to take everything in your apartment to the laundromat and all 3 of you need to do lice treatments. At that time, I felt like it was the end of the world for me. I was so anxious about it all, especially when the nurse said we need to comb out her hair and get all the bugs out. I remember crying by my bed, just wanting to go home. Then I had the strongest impression that Christ was by my side and by her side. He helped me walk out there and comb the lice out of her hair. I literally felt like he was there doing it with us and he was smiling. Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's basically the end of the story. But there were actually a lot of sisters who had lice on my mission. Also, one of my companions got lice when I was with her. Luckily, I didn't get it because my hair is like super, super naturally curly and thick and coarse. And so I was like, if I get lice, they're going to just spread everywhere. And I knew,
go to town.
Yeah, I knew it was going to be so hard to get out. And so thank you, God, for not giving me lice. And then a lot of sisters on my mission got dengue fever too from mosquitoes. And like a lot of missionaries got super sick in Cambodia. And I somehow got lucky and I never really got sick, but
You just had to poop in a trash can.
yeah. But dude, that story though, with the cockroaches and the mold and whew, that's heavy. I was lucky enough to have like good living conditions too, because I literally thought I was going to have to like bucket shower. Like I didn't know what it was going to be like, because I've heard the Philippines is kind of similar to Cambodia, just the country and the infrastructure and just a lot of similarities. Like they're both pretty poor countries. And so I just didn't know. I'm like, maybe I'm going to get to the country and I'm going to have to like shower outside. But luckily the sisters had pretty good setups for the most part. There was one place that I lived in that didn't really have AC, and it's like the AC worked, but it was usually just like in one room, you know. I got pretty lucky overall, not getting lice or anything. Did you ever get sick on your mission?
Not really.
Just for like heat stroke?
Yeah.
You said your eyes would like burn because you couldn't wear sunglasses, right?
Yeah, there was, when I was living in Florida, this happened during the portion where I was like on the coast. They have these things called causeways. So usually there's a river that runs. Mm-hmm. There's land, there's a river, then there's more land, and then there's the ocean.
Yeah.
And so to bridge the land to the beach, you have to go over this river, and it's called the causeway. And those things are white, and Florida's the sunshine state. And so when you ride your bikes up those things, it takes a lot of effort. It's like a master thigh workout.
Yeah.
First off, and it's really bright. Mm-hmm. And I didn't have sunglasses. My mission president didn't want us to be wearing sunglasses while we were tracting.
I'm just surprised that you couldn't wear it while you were biking.
I probably could have.
Okay.
But I don't know. I just didn't really like putting it on and taking it off.
Yeah.
Because I know myself, I would lose it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I would lose it anyways.
Yeah.
I sunburned the heck out of my eyes, and my eyesight hasn't been the same ever since.
Did you eat anything weird on your mission?
Yeah. We had a Filipino family that made us balut.
Oh yeah, it was
when I was with Elder Spry.
Yeah, I had that on the mission a lot too. It's like the little
the
chicks,
half-formed
right? Half-formed chicks or ducks, yeah.
Yeah, so I ate 2 of them. I ate his because he couldn't do it when they were like out of the room.
That's hilarious. I would say the only thing that I didn't really love on my mission were like, there's just so many dishes that have fish in it. And it's like, I like fish, but a lot of it was like fish paste, fermented fish. Like just the taste of it was really rough to get used to, you know?
Dude, I feel like I can smell it.
Oh
just
yeah.
Like when you say
the smell is very, very intense.
The nastiest meal I ever had on my mission was near Christmas in my first area. It was with this family, and they were super kind, and they had like 2 kids that had severe disabilities. Their house was cramped. They had cats like all over the place.
Oh,
they
I
were
remember you
super
telling
kind.
me this, yeah.
But they must have like let their cats on the countertop or something, because they were making these mashed potatoes that weren't mixed very well.
Oh my gosh.
And they served them to us, and it was just a weird, like the texture of the food was weird. It wasn't like, it was just, I'm not super, super picky, but I was grossed out as the meal stood. But as I was eating the mashed potatoes,
Yeah.
I found a tuft of cat hair in it. Not like one hair, but like a tuft of cat
When
hair.
you told me that, I just like imagined myself taking a bite of like a fat wad of cat hair, and I was like, that is freaking nasty.
Mixed with mashed potatoes.
Oh man.
Instant mashed potatoes.
Well, some like people's living conditions though, you're like, I'm scared to eat your food. Like I'm so grateful for your generosity, but like the living conditions, you're like, how did you even make this meal? Like,
dude, the very first meal I had with a member on my mission, they were a super cool family. They were fun. They had a ton of kids. I can't remember what the husband did for work, but they invited us over, and I remember we were just talking to the family, and like there was a girl, she's like 7. Dude, she just like ripped ass super loud.
while you were eating?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
But anyways, she ripped a big one, and it was like, whoa. And she laughed, and the mom was super embarrassed. I thought it was hilarious.
That is funny. Oh man. Well, I guess we can end on just one takeaway for anyone who's thinking about going on a mission, or like how the mission like changed you.
You're going to suffer, but you'll be happy for it.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding. But like in all seriousness, it's hard, but there's not a single thing I would do to change the experience that I had or that I went. It was 1000% like the beginning of my adult life. And my eyes are open because of it, whereas they were closed. The amount of growth that you get spiritually through other areas too, like you're developing your own self-awareness. You have to become very self-aware if you know that you're bothering somebody.
Yeah.
And there's no way to get away from them. You have to ask yourself, okay, like, am I just not going to change? Or like, what is it that I'm doing that's bugging them?
Yeah.
You have to increase in self-awareness. You have to be honest with yourself about your effort level. There's just so many countless lessons that are learned from that. Mm-hmm. And it's amazing. You develop a relationship with Christ that is very, very special.
I agree. I would say for me, I really believe that the mission was a foundation that I personally needed for the rest of my life. And I remember getting a blessing after I got home that in the blessing, it talked about how I would never like leave God again. And I don't remember the exact wording, but it was to that extent. Cause like I had said in the previous episode, I've had a lot of, just times where I doubted and had a lot of struggles. And I really felt like me choosing to go, like God, not only did God accept my service, I felt like he wanted me to have that experience. So I would always hold it dear to my heart, and I would never, I guess, forget it, and just try to stay strong and rely on God through everything. And I will say I've had this conversation with family members recently that we were talking about the Come Thou Fount, and then the lyrics, it talks about how prone to wander, Lord, I feel it, and I just think a lot of us are prone to wander, and we have times where we don't want to rely on God through hardships. And I've had moments in my life where I've turned away and I've really tried to rely on myself, rely on other people, coped maybe in certain ways that weren't the best. And I just know the times that I've leaned into my testimony and God and tried to go to the temple and do these things that I know can benefit not only me, but just to be blessed to have those experiences. Because like in Cambodia, a lot of the people have to walk to church, and it's hard for them to get to church. Like they don't have transportation, and sometimes they wait their whole life like to go to the temple one time, because there's not a temple like currently. It's being built in Cambodia, which is so incredible, but a lot of these countries like don't have those like luxuries that we do. And I think it's so easy to focus on the culture or the bad things that might bother us in the church or whatever. Growing up in Utah, all of these things that kind of seem petty when you see how much people are willing to sacrifice to go to church and do these things. And I always try to remember that, that we're blessed, and I am just so grateful for the mission. Not only like I said, I was able to give back to my Savior. I just feel like I've always had such a strong testimony of the atonement. And I think like it just felt like a tiny, tiny, tiny way that I could just give back to what he's done for me, and I just think anyone who's thinking about going, like, you'll never regret it. And I am just so grateful, especially for the people that I met and my friends that I met too, because I'm still friends with a lot of people from the mission today, and it's been a huge blessing for me. So
I think for me, this is the honest truth. My biggest takeaway from the mission, and this is something that as I was just sitting here, I kind of realized, I feel like a lot of people feel like when you go on a mission, you're going to be more ingrained in the church. Like the thing that a lot of people today don't like, or they push back against, or I don't know. For me, it was never really like that. Like I don't feel like I became more culturally ingrained to the church. It wasn't that I didn't, but what happened to me on my mission was that I developed such a personal relationship with Christ that I would say more than becoming more quote unquote religious, I became significantly more spiritual. And it's something that has been an anchor in my life. It was like something that I could kind of sense before my mission. I had some experiences, but then like I said, it was like this veil was taken off of my eyes on my mission, where the reality of my relationship with God and with Christ and how interested they are in me and how interested they are in others, and how that relationship and that dynamic, how me serving others is how I show my love to them. It's a hard lesson to learn, but it was worth every moment. It was worth every difficult moment that we went through. And I feel like you feel the same way, honestly. I feel that's why you and I get along really well, and why the way that we live our religion is really kind of lockstep, because you and I were not, I would say that I was more of a letter of the law type person on my mission. But as I've matured, and it's not to say that we don't follow the rules, we follow every single rule. You know, there's things that we're not perfect. We're not perfect. We don't read our scriptures every day, you know, or say prayers for as long, or they're not always the most meaningful. You get what I'm trying to say. But at the end of the day, you and I are locked in, not because we believe everything that comes out of a general authority's mouth. I'm not saying we don't, but because you and I have developed a relationship with Christ. And that's something that there's nothing that could take that away from us.
yeah,
Yeah.
I agree. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed our 2-segment mission episodes, and we're just so grateful for our missions, and hats off to all the missionaries who've ever served and who are thinking about serving. And keep sharing the podcast, rate, review, subscribe, just keep staying in touch. We love hearing from you guys. And
Yep, we're going to start having guests on pretty soon, so we're pretty excited about that.
Yeah.
We'll see you guys next time, and welcome to the zoo.